Welcome to another edition of the GrAE Area. I have a special guest, Kevin Jones. We're both from Mount Vernon, so this is a special episode for me. Kevin has not only performed at high levels at the high school level, collegiate level, and the professional level, not only just in the NBA, but internationally as well. So, welcome, Kev, to the GrAE Area. Um, First off, how have you been able to handle quarantine life? A lot is going on, and it's basically threw off a lot in terms of sports. So I know that affected you and your career right now. So how have you been able to manage everything?
Yeah, it's definitely been tough, man. By the way, thanks for having me, man. This is a special episode for me too, because we both come from the same place. We was in the same classes sometimes, so
Right.
is big for me too. So yeah, I was in Japan when everything was happening. I just played my last 2 seasons in Japan, so I was playing for one of the top teams out there, and we were like 2/3 of the way through the season when we found out that they were going to cancel the rest of the season. So obviously, we didn't like it, but we understood the nature of everything, and safety was first always. So I after leaving Japan, I came back home early. I got back in April. I had to quarantine for 2 weeks, just in case. I didn't know what was going on, if I had it, if I didn't have it, but I didn't want to give it to anybody else if I did. So I had to quarantine for the first 2 weeks. I got back home, and then after that, just started working out, kind of getting prepared to see if the season was going to happen or not. But as far as I know now, the season is still going on next season. So I'm excited. I'm going back to the same team. Yeah, man, just excited that, sports in general is coming back little by little.
In regards to the protocols that have been put in place specifically around basketball, not only with the NBA but the TBT tournament as well was very instrumental in executing a bubble fashion type of tournament. What are your thoughts on how the bubble has come together, not only for the NBA in Orlando, but what TBT did in Ohio as well?
I think TBT did a excellent job. We were supposed to be one of the teams in there, Best Virginia, me and a collection of some of the other alumni from West Virginia, but unfortunately some people on the team had COVID, so we couldn't participate in it. But just seeing how they handled it real professionally, I liked it, and I wasn't sure how the atmosphere was gonna be with no fans and everything, but I think guys still play hard. They still competed at a high level. So I'm hoping that's the same thing in the NBA and a whole lot of other leagues who may have to follow those same guidelines with no fans, or maybe 20% of fans, or whatever, however that may turn out. So like I said, I'm just glad that we're progressing. It may be small, and maybe little steps, but we're still going forward.
Most definitely, most definitely. Now, I wanna take you back to the beginning and just how you got introduced to the game, and really your first inclinations towards basketball. How did that start for you?
Well, for me, I was never really I wouldn't say I wasn't a sports fan. My brother played collegiate football. He played at the Mount Vernon High School football. So I was a fan because of him. But me personally, I was never a fan. I just watched games with him. And I was always taller than everybody around me. So my brother was like, "Yo, why don't you try and play basketball?" I'm like, I don't really want to. Like, it's just not my thing." And then it was one thing that he did that at the time I was like, I wasn't about it, but looking back, I'm glad he did. He sent me to a 5-star basketball camp when I was in 5th grade. And for anybody who knows 5-star basketball camp, these is camps where, some of the top guys in the country, younger players, older players, whatever, they go and, they showcase their skills, go through drills, break off into different teams and play against each other. So me with no basketball experience, just height, just going off the fact that I had height, I went there, I wasn't happy about it at all. But when I left there loving basketball. And I was like, yo, I want to do this again. So I told him next year, I was like, all right, I want to go back because I liked it so much. And ever since then, I've been building towards that. And speaking of my big brother, he's very instrumental part in my growing up and my work ethic and getting me to this point. It'd be times that we wake up at 6 a.m, go around. I live around the corner from Memorial Field, all my Mount Vernon people. So go around the corner, run the track, run the steps, 6 in the morning. So he taught me work ethic at a very young age, and I'm happy he instilled that in me.
So with your brother, playing sports at a high level, and then it bleeding into you, what were some things that not just from athletic standpoint, but mentally and emotionally that he poured into you that you were able to put towards basketball at a young age?
Like I said, one of the things was work ethic. Just knowing that nobody's gonna give you nothing. You gotta work for everything you get. Just staying disciplined. There was times, you know, you don't want to wake up. You don't want to wake up. You don't want to work out. But those be the days where you get better, because it's like those days you're pushing yourself, even though you don't want to do it. You can't just work hard on the days you feel good. You gotta work hard on the days you don't. So that was not only basketball, but outside of basketball, into
Mm.
the classroom or anything else I did in life. Always just put your best foot forward, and even work on the days you don't feel like working. So that, not just for basketball, that's just like my whole life mindset.
So going from that 5-star camp and then leaving with that seed planted, that passion to play, when would you say your skills started to level up with your passion in terms of you started to turn that corner as a player?
Yeah. So for me, I think the most, in my opinion, where I grew the most was from my 7th grade summer going into my 8th grade year. And I played for a program called Junior Knights. It's like a funnel system for the Mount Vernon High School program. And Coach D, Dwayne, he taught me a lot. And I played for this. I played for 7th grade Mount Vernon Knights, and I tried out for their summer team, which is a big thing, which is an AAU thing, and they go around and play against guys from different states and everything like that. And I didn't make the team. So for me, that was the first time I tried out for anything and didn't make it. So that was a driving factor for me to be like, all right, I'm gonna make sure this never happens to me again, for whatever reason, whether I wasn't good enough, whether I wasn't, developed enough, whatever. But that was enough motivation for me to make that leap from 7th to 8th grade, that when I came back, everybody was like, what the hell happened to Kevin over the summer? Like, he's a totally different person. I like really locked in. And I would say that's when I felt like I can compete at a high level.
Now, that moment for you, I mean, a lot of people can speak to times where, it doesn't go their way, but that turning point for somebody, that's the foundational piece that drives them, like you said, just going forward. So at a young age, how did you recognize that? A lot of people, it takes a lifetime for them to realize that failure might not be the worst thing. You got to use it as fuel. So, what, how, was there anything that you could point to that helps you in that mindset, or you just already had it in you internally?
Um, I think I would credit that to my brother and the rest of my, not just my brother. I mean, the rest of my family support system. I got a great support system, and they were. I mean, it came from, I had to do the work, obviously, but them always cheering me on, like not letting me sulk, not letting me get down on myself. Like, all right, this happened to you. We'll make sure, like I said, we'll make sure this never happens again, and you just gonna work your butt off. And I had it internally, but also externally with the people around me
Right, right.
pushing me and making me be my best self. And when you got a great support system, man, I feel like you could do anything. You could accomplish a lot with that. So I thank them for a lot of that.
Now, around this time at a young age, who were you modeling your game after? Like, is any like what players did you look to say, oh, I can play in a similar mold and develop my skills around that?
You want to know something funny? Is that Kevin Garnett has always been my favorite player. Anybody who knows me know KG's favorite player. Very passionate about the game, his whole demeanor, everything. But me personally, I'm the total opposite. I'm more of like, I would say my game is more of Tim Duncan wise, like fundamentally sound,
Right.
execute, around the rim, touchy, not really so flashy, but get it done. You look up at the score, I had 20 points, and you don't know how I got it. But
Right.
so it's funny how that works. But I try to take a little bit from both guys' games,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be times I just watch the game, because sometimes you watch it for entertainment, and I found myself watching it more like, oh, yo, I think I could use that move. I still use some of the moves today that I've looked at them like, oh, yo, I could put that in my game. So I try to model my game, I would say, after those two guys.
So after that seventh grade summer going into eighth grade, what was happening within the game that you saw the most growth? Like where did you see the most advancement in your skills?
Well, for me, I feel like compared to other guys, I started out kind of late. Some guys start second, third grade with a ball in their hand. Like I said, I didn't really get introduced into basketball until fifth grade. So
Right.
for me, I felt like that was kind of late. So I think that my skills developed more towards like my height. It started catching up with each other, you know,
Okay.
and just like I said, nonstop in the gym with my brother, going over different drills. We would go over things hundreds of times, just simple things, drop steps, hook shots, simple everything. There would be times I'm like, yo, we shooting this again. Like, yo, this it's all muscle memory. Like
Right,
you
right.
get the muscle memory down, you got the move down. So it'd be times I'm like, damn, we'll be in the gym for literally 3 hours, like doing whatever.
Hmm.
But that's what molded me. Like nothing else would be. Not saying that nothing else would be hard, but I know I can do whatever going through what I'm going through now at such a young age. You know, everything else is. I'm like, all right. I look to everything as this. I can do this challenge. Like it's nothing. It's nothing to me.
So when you're playing at that point, you get cut from the that team, but are you starting to get looks towards varsity around this time in eighth
Um,
grade in terms of your potential going into high school?
so my eighth grade year. Seventh grade year, I played a lot. I started, but I wasn't nowhere near the best player. Eighth grade year, I was clearly the best player on the team, but just because of the work that I did, and I won MVP for the team or whatever like that. And then that's when even before. So my eighth grade summer, Coach Semino, Bob Semino, the coach of the Mount Vernon High School team, he has like a summer program where the guys come in, the younger guys who are looking junior varsity, whatever, they come in, they work out against each other, play against each other. So my eighth grade summer going to my ninth grade summer, they selected me on one of the teams to play against the varsity guys.
Right.
I'm like, eighth grade varsity is a total, that's a leap right there. But I came in, I held my own, and in that moment, it was like, yo, this kid has a chance. And as scholar of the game too, like there's not a lot of people that play varsity as a freshman at Mount Vernon. Like
Right.
that's not heard of a lot. So if you do, you have to be, you have to be special for that age.
Right.
So I actually got the opportunity to do that, and I'm like, man, it was everything from that moment. I was like, all my hard work being is actually being like seen, and I'm being noticed for my talent. So it was a great feeling.
Now, as a young player, you're walking into a program that is a story program from top to bottom, going back to the 70s into the early 2000s. This is around '04, '05 now. You have veteran leadership on that team. This is with Jonathan Mitchell, Michael Colburn, and so on. So, and entering that, what was your mindset in terms of how to be of value to this team and how you can get better going forward?
Well, my mindset going into any situation is, especially if I'm a new guy, is watch who the best players are and do what they do. Like whatever, follow them, do what they do. Their work ethic, they stay after, they come in before, you do that. Because obviously that's the reason why they got where they are. So
Right.
I just tried to follow the Mike Colburns, Jonathan Mitchells, even the Chris Lowe's who was there. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Those guys, and they kind of set the template for me of, okay, this is what is expected of you. And I didn't try to come in do too much. I knew my role. I knew I wasn't going to have a huge role, which I kind of end up more towards the end of the year kind of having a little bit bigger of a role. But I knew at the start I was going to be getting spot minutes. Whenever I come in, I want to be productive, whether it was 2 minutes or 20 minutes. I wanted to be productive in that time. So that was my mind frame, is just to learn from the best and be productive in whatever time I got.
Now, your freshman year is on the heels of Mount Vernon winning a state and federation title. So you're coming into a team that's trying to repeat and defend their title. So what was that experience like for you at such a young age, being held to such a high standard?
You know what? I didn't even think about that. That's crazy that the year before I even got on the team that they were trying to repeat. I was more trying to like, this is my first year of high school. Forget basketball. I'm trying to worry about studying and doing all that stuff. And then basketball, like, oh yeah, now it's time to go out and work out, So it was like a whole bunch of things coming at you at one time. But like I said, my support system was great. My brother, making sure I stay focused, just like as far as girls or distractions that high school can cause. And,
Right.
Mount Vernon's a small town. It's easy to get into trouble. So he kept me away from all the drama and bull, and just made sure I stayed focused on basketball. And yeah, so that's what I did all throughout my high school career.
Now, as your game is progressing, like you're saying, your profile is going to progress as well. A different spotlight is going to be thrust upon you uh, as an athlete, but also just being, the next up in a way. So, how did you manage your ego at that time? You mentioned your brother being instrumental in your support system, but I know individually sometimes it might, you know, feel a certain way. So, how were you able to manage all of that?
I've always been a humble person, in my opinion. I mean, some people might think different, but in my opinion, I've always been humble just for the experience of being on varsity as a freshman. So I don't think there was ever a moment where I really got a big head. Of course, I was happy for myself. I'm like, yo, this is my hard work coming to fruition. But it was never a moment where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the man. Like, you know what I mean? I could do X, Y, and Z. That's just not in my DNA. That's just not the kind of person I am. So it was easy for me to manage that. And my friends kept me humble. I mean, to them, I was just a regular kid. I was just their friend, you
Right.
know. And I never saw myself as anything more than that. So maybe if I had a thought of myself as some kind of superstar or some kind of, celebrity, I would have thought different, but I never did.
So that freshman year is done. You're on the team. Your role grows towards the end of the freshman year. So, so basically, responsibility is going to grow into your sophomore year. Now, this year, you win a state championship. So, what was happening for you during this time as your role grows, your status grows, the team wins again. What is that like for you?
Well, around that time, towards my freshman year, I would say I had a pretty good freshman year. And then also I had a really good summer. Going in that summer, I played for AAU team, Westchester Hawks, with some of the top guys around Westchester. Sean Kilpatrick played in the NBA. Mookie Jones played at Syracuse, and a bunch of other guys who made it to a very high level. So playing alongside them guys during the summer, and that being my first experience of AAU, that got me in a whole different bag. Like, I'm playing against the top players, forgetting their states, like in the country. Like, I'm playing
Right.
against top players in the country now, and I'm doing good against them. So now, like, my confidence is at a whole new level. So going into my sophomore year, I'm like, yo, where before I was more timid, like, I cannot play, I was sure of myself, but I wasn't really like, because I never done it before. But into my sophomore year, I got a whole new confidence, like this is my time, you know? And I know that we still had Jonathan Mitchell senior year and Mike Coburn was rising junior. So we still had them two guys in front of me. But I knew that I can contribute at a high level just because of that summer. So my mindset was not just to try to contribute, but be the player that I know I can be. And yeah, that sophomore year, I just took off. And then also, I was getting letters from a lot of top colleges, and that also boosted my confidence as well.
So what was this, taking you back to that time? What was that era like for basketball, especially in New York? You mentioned Sean Kirkpatrick, Mookie Jones. You also had Kemba Walker, Edgar Sosa. Like, what was that era like for you coming up and establishing yourself during this time?
It was great, man, because New York basketball was, I would say, is like, one of the all-time highs as far as talent is concerned. Like all the people, the names you mentioned. and there's a whole bunch of other names that can't get to, but it was just a premium for New York basketball. And if you were good at that time, you knew you were pretty talented, because there was a lot of talented guys ahead of you. So just trying to stay with the competition, New York is all about bragging rights. New
Right.
York people, they're gonna talk mess to you whether you good or bad. They're gonna talk their mess. So I try to keep up with that and always just stay on top of my game, man. And the more comfortable I got, that's the more the expectations come. So just trying to continue to meet those expectations, not only of other people, but of myself too, the expectations I had of myself. So, that was my whole mindset during that time.
So this is Jonathan Mitchell senior year, Colburn's junior year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're going into your junior year now, a champion in your own right. You're trying to defend that, but now your role is gonna grow once Jonathan leaves.
Yep.
So this year, you're averaging, looking at the numbers, you average 21 and 12. You're really starting to get the ball more from an offensive standpoint. How does your mentality change as people are coming up under you and you're setting the standard, along with Mike Colburn, but really now you're more of a go-to guy?
For me, it was weird being in that position, because every position I've always been in, I've been a young boy. So that was my first time of being the old head, so to speak, of the team, and people looking at me and people watching how I work. And I didn't. My whole thing was I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want them to see me not working. I didn't want to set a standard of like mediocrity. Like I didn't want them to see me and be like, oh yeah, he does that and gets away with it. So why don't I didn't want to do that, like on or off the court. I always made sure I wanted to set a good example for the younger guys, like the older I got. And as far as the basketball is concerned, being a go-to guy, I felt like at that time I was ready for it. I was, towards that time, I was one of the top players in the country. My name was getting one of the top 4 or 5 players in New York at that time. So I'm pretty established by now. There's no more jitters. There's no more nothing like that. It's like it's my time to go. And then also with Coburn next to me, another top player, is like we're just like a 1-2 punch that year, and just got it done.
Now, being established in Mount Vernon's program, the Knights have a streamline to D1 scholarships. Mitchell went to Florida. Chris Lowe went to UMass. So you're starting to see goals come to fruition for others. At this point, you're almost at the finish line, but you still got to finish your work at that level. So what was your relationship like with those guys in terms of preparing you for the next level? While you're still there, but you still have that mentor relationship that can make it easy for you.
Yeah, for me, I was lucky because Mount Vernon, the basketball is just like a big family. So
Right.
even when those guys graduated, they would come back, they would play with us, they would give us tips. They'd be like, "Yo, give us things we need to work on that we need to prepare for the next level, not just high school." So
Right.
that was very valuable for us, looking at them and seeing the work that they put in. It was just like my freshman year. It was like I have a whole new level now that I wouldn't say conquered the high school level, but now that I'm at the peak of the high school level, I know there's a whole new level I have to get to, and I want to start that early. I want to start preparing for college my junior year at high school. So that the lessons they taught us when they came back was very valuable. And you also have to soak up that knowledge. You have to be a sponge. And that's I think one of my biggest assets is always being a sponge and learning from other guys, and not being so, how can I say, not being so cocky or think I know it all, to be able to learn from somebody. And that's always helped me throughout my career.
Now, as you prepare for your senior year, you're trying to defend back-to-back titles now.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're saying, you're preparing for the next level. I want to touch on Coach Firmino for a little bit in terms of your relationship with him and how he made these stages within your career easier, but also challenge you in ways to make you even better.
Yeah, Coach Amino was was big time, especially for me in high school. He never, like I said, I've had my brother and my family in the time, and as far as like college goes, or picking which kind of schools I wanted to go to, where he was more involved in other kids' lives that may have not had that same family support, or older brother looking at them after them like my brother did. He kind of stayed out of the way, so to speak. Like, as far as he let me learn and to grow, and he never tried to interrupt the relationship between me and my family, me and my brother. So I really credit him for that and thank him for that. And I was, like I said, I was never a kid to be in trouble a lot, or he had to tell me things a whole lot. Maybe one or two times he tells me something, and
Got it.
I got it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say he had a easy time coaching me, but I want to say it was probably one of the easier things. But Coach Semino's a great coach. He's been around for 30, 40. I don't know. I don't even know how old Coach Semino is right now, but
Right.
he's been around forever, man. And I thank him for everything, because he definitely helped me learn some life lessons as well, especially about working hard and what it takes to be at the next level. Because we had study hall, we had food when we would be at study hall. We have people bringing sandwiches and pizza to eat, like no other. This is like college. There's some colleges that don't even do that. You know what I mean? We had Coach Pete, our strength and conditioning coach, come in, so we was always strong. Might have been skinny, but always strong. So the way he ran his program was like a college, and that's why we were so good every year.
So around this time, your prestige is getting higher individually. So what are your thoughts in schools that you're looking at in terms of, this might be the one from you? What are some schools you had?
So my top 5 schools came down to Ohio State, UMass, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Indiana. Those are my 5 visits my 5 official visits that I went. I mean, I had other schools, but those were the 5 official visits that I was looking for. So going on all those visits, Ohio State was my first one. And quick story about that. I wanted to go to Ohio State after I made my first visit. I love Thad Matta. Thad Matta was there. The facilities, everything was great. I went out with the guys. They took me out. Everything was great. I'm like, I'm coming. Like, I don't need to see any more schools. I'm going here. I told my brother. And he was like, I know. He's like, I know you're excited, but this is your first visit. And he's been through all this stuff already, so he already knows the ropes. He's like, just take all your visits, and if you feel the same way, then, we'll choose Ohio State. So I was like, all right, cool. And then, so in the middle of all that, Ohio State calls, and they're like, well, we need you to commit now. And I was like, I'm not ready to commit now. I haven't taken all my visits. It's like, well, if you don't commit now, then we're going to have to recruit over you, pretty much. And I was like, well, even though I really wanted to go to the school, I'm like, I'm not going to let anybody force me to make a decision that I'm not ready for. So I'm like, okay, then I guess you guys got to do that. And then I want to say my second to last visit was West Virginia. And I came here, and it just felt like home. Honestly, like, people had signs, people had shirts made of us, and they had, the season before, they had just come off a Sweet 16 run.
Right.
So everybody was excited about the basketball program. We were Coach Huggins' first recruiting class coming into West Virginia. So everybody was excited about that, and the rest is history, man.
So who's in that recruiting class with you as you're going on those visits?
Me, Truck Bryant, he went to St. Raymond's in the Bronx, and Devin Ebanks, he's one of the top players in the country, All-American. So we had one of the top recruiting, between us three, we had one of the top recruiting classes in the country going into 2008. So,
right.
And it's all New York guys,
right?
Going
So
to West Virginia. So
right. So even though you are going somewhere, that's foreign from home, it's going to be a new beginning. You still have those home roots to where you can be comfortable, be yourself, while still growing and meeting new people as well.
Exactly.
So that's definitely a good experience to have, because now your transition will be much easier.
For sure. And these are guys that I played against, guys I wouldn't say I necessarily know, but I know their talent, and I feel like we could play together. And yeah, so it was great.
Now, this is me just watching your game, you know, from young and as you progress. At that time, you're more of a stretch four before they even categorizing a stretch four. You can shoot, you pass well, continuity and team is always within you. So coming to teams with established players and guys that are the men on their teams, what was that dynamic like once you decide I'm gonna go to West Virginia, but it's all this excitement? Like how was that reset for you going to a new squad?
Yeah, like I told you, when I go into a new team, the first thing I do, look at what the best players doing on the team and follow that.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I did, first day I stepped on campus officially, I asked for a disc of Joe Alexander at the time. He was top 10 draft pick, best player on the team. He didn't decide to come back. He decided to go to the draft. But I mean, nevertheless, not saying that our games model each other, but I just wanted to see where I could fit in and what did he do to make him special. So I just tried to model that and him and Deshaun Butler, who we played 2 years with. Those were the guys on the team. So I wanted to model how I felt I could fit in after those guys. So for me, it was nothing. I was used. High school was the first time. The last 2 years of high school was the first time I ever had to step up and be one of those guys. Before then, I was always used to being in the back. You know what I mean? Learning from people. So this was no different. I just went back to that mindset of, okay, now you're starting all over again. Do the same thing. Progress each year and see what happens. And that's exactly what I did.
Now your freshman year was a huge year for West Virginia in terms of just like you said, coming off a Sweet 16 run, trying to reestablish that feeling, but even progress even more. You guys take it all the way to the Elite Eight.
That's my sophomore year. My sophomore year, we won the Big East tournament and we went to the Final Four.
Final Four. Okay.
Sophomore year, yeah.
So going that is 09-10.
Yeah, 2009, 2010, yeah.
Okay. So that first year as a freshman, how are you getting used to the college game? Like from a team dynamic, you stepping in, you're used to that role, and putting your head down, locking in, and figuring out how to find your niche. What is that first year for you like as a freshman?
I think basketball is always basketball, and the thing with my brother, he always let me play against older guys. So for me, playing against older guys was not that basketball was never going to be the problem. It was going to be the being away from home. I've never been away from home, never been away from my family. Me and my family are very close knit, and this is like a 6-hour drive away. Not
Right.
not super bad, but not that you could just go and just drive up there whenever you want, you know?
Right.
So the outside, the getting used to being around different kinds of people. When I say different kinds of people, I mean different races of people. Like I've only been around, in Mount Vernon, Black people, Spanish,
Right.
not really any white people. And coming here, the majority of people here is white. Was like a culture shock to me.
Okay.
So it was like getting used to that element, living on my own, being away from my family. It was more of the outside stuff. The basketball was never really a problem, even though Coach Huggins is notorious for being a hard-nosed coach.
Right.
I had hard-nosed coaches before. Coach Semino is hard-nosed. So I wasn't worried about that. It was all the outside stuff that I was worried about. But, it took it took some getting adjusted to. And but we got it done. I think I had a pretty good freshman year considering everything. I ended up being the sixth man coming off the bench. I felt I should have started, but sometimes it doesn't happen, and I was good in my role, and I was playing starters minutes anyway. So
right, and that was key. But that, in a way, going back to when you got cut that time, you use that. You could probably use that as fuel to motivate you to maintain that discipline and go even harder so that the next year you'll probably be in position to start. So, adjusting to everything you're saying in terms of like the distractions and just the culture shock and really settling in, what is that summer like for you from freshman into sophomore year? And what is the team energy like that propelled you guys to the run that you did as a sophomore?
So our freshman year, we played in the NCAA tournament. We lost to Dayton in the first round,
Okay.
which we weren't supposed to lose to Dayton. They had a good team, but we were not supposed to lose them. So that was disappointing in itself. So we didn't like that taste of that. So that was motivation enough. And we knew this is our second year. Devin had a chance to go to the NBA draft. His stock was very high, but he decided to come back.
Okay.
Had him coming back. Deshaun's senior year, he was one of the top players in the Big East. My sophomore year, me and Chuck's sophomore year coming in. So that talent together and another year playing with each other, that was all we need. That was the most talented team I ever played on. And as far as me personally, I came in at 205. I gained like 10, 15 pounds. So like 215, 220. From my freshman summer to my sophomore year, I was 250.
Wow.
I went from 220 to 250. So I was feeling into my body, like, coming back. People seeing me before and then coming back home, I'm 250 now. They're like, yo, what the yo, you've been taking something. I'm
right.
Like, nah, like I'm locked in, like, because I knew this was our time. And that was just an exciting time because I knew what we could be. And that's what all was on our mind, was kind of avenging how the season ended and getting that bad taste out of our mouth from the Dayton loss.
So as the season goes on, was there any like game or moment that you could point to that you felt like, nah, we're really gonna execute and take it there? Was there a game or like a matchup that you guys looked to that took you there? Or
Nah, I actually was throughout the whole season, and to be honest with that season, I knew we had the talent, but NCAA is unpredictable. You know
right.
what I mean? You're dealing with college kids, anything could happen. Yeah, so I knew we had the talent. Did I know that we were going to go as far as we did? No, but I knew if we all stayed together, we all stayed healthy, that we would. And there were times that, like behind the scenes times, that we didn't know what was going to happen. Some guy gets hurt and can't play, like a main guy gets hurt and can't play. Somebody steps up, stuff like that. So there wasn't just one time. We had a lot of games where we came from behind that we could have easily lost, but we stuck through it, and the team was so mentally tough, and we were so together as one that we never quit. No matter how much we were down, no matter what it looked like, we never quit. And I think that was the big thing about that team.
So as you guys get to tournament time, you guys win the Big East. You're coming off of a tough loss that you weren't supposed to lose in your first tournament experience. So what is your mindset? Obviously you guys are driven, but like, what is the mindset for you going into this run?
Kill everything. Kill everything. I'm like, there's no way this is happening. I'm not letting this happen again.
Right.
Especially coming off the Big East championship run, everybody, how excited everybody was. So first game against we played Morgan State. First game, start out slow again. I'm like, yo, nah, this ain't going down. I can't remember. I think they had us maybe down by like 7, 8. I just start hitting shots. I'm like, nah, and then we start, flow starts coming back. Then we get them out of there. And then we played Missouri, which at that time they were a pressing team. I think they called it like, I want to say 40 minutes of hell, something like that. That was their pressing style. And a lot of people thought that they were going to beat us. Got them out of there. We played so we in the Sweet 16. We play Washington with Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas was on Washington. Truck gets hurt out for the rest of the season. has to have a screw in his foot. He has to have foot surgery, breaks his foot. So we have no point. I mean, we have one point guard, Joe Mazzulla, only point guard. So Deshaun is starting the game as our point guard,
Right.
Deshaun Butler. So nobody knew how we were going to react to that. I mean, we obviously Chuck is our main point guard facilitator, so we did miss a beat, but we got it back. Ended up winning that game. I had a big game. I think I had like 18, something like that. So, Elite Eight game, Kentucky, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe, that team.
Right. And that's really, they had a lot of hype around them. That's good. They had a lot of hype around them because that's really Coach Cal's first Kentucky class, in which, you know, the one and he was already notorious for the one and done type of athlete, but for that particular class, they were expected to run through everything and then get them to the get that particular class straight to the draft. That was the expectation.
Facts. And that was Coach Cal's first year at Kentucky, actually.
Right.
Because the year before, I think they had Billy Gillespie. He was there because we played Kentucky my freshman year. Right. So that was Coach Cal's first year at Kentucky. So just to have that team, and they were deservedly outright the number one team in that in the tournament.
Right.
I think they only lost like 2 games throughout the whole season. So everybody's just expecting. It was like, oh yeah, you know, West Virginia is a nice story, but here's where the story stops. Right. Nobody thinks we're gonna win. So we come out, and I mean, we weren't worried about it because we knew that when it came down to it, they'd never been in this kind of setting before. Like we're more seasoned. It's just like, is their game plan gonna work, or is our game plan gonna work better? So the first half, we come out, we don't score any 2-point field goals, all 3 points. And that's not our strength at all. That's not our strength, but for some reason that day, that's what we needed in the first half to stay with the team. And then they weren't hitting shots. They weren't hitting their free throws. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins was getting off early, but towards the end of the game, we kind of wore them down with the 1-3-1 press, which was our bread and butter that year. And man, that was like one of the best feelings ever, being counted out by everybody and still beating them anyway. Man, I can't tell you how good that felt. And that was our program's first Final Four since Jerry West.
So that's going back to the late 50s right there.
That's history, you know?
Right.
So and on top of being the Big East champions. So I was like, man, that was great.
So getting to this moment, just take us within the mindset of, you know, you played basketball up until that point. You played hundreds of games, you know, under pressure games. You've been a guy in the clutch in high school. So many different spaces. But what is the difference between, you know, a high school game or college game compared to an NCAA tournament game? Like, what's the dynamic change in that regard?
Much more people. The talent level is greater, obviously. I feel like you're playing for a lot more, like playing for your high school and then playing for a university. I feel like the stakes are a little bit higher.
Right.
And also, we was just chasing history, you know. If we won that game, like I said, they haven't made a Final Four since Jerry West. So we were chasing history. And just the team we had, man, I was never – obviously, you get pregame jitters and all that stuff. I was never worried because I knew the guys – I knew they had, like, my back and they know I had theirs. So we just went in there like, nobody expected us to be here anyway. Let's just do it. Let's make it even more crazy. And that's what we did.
Right. So that was really March Madness. You got to really experience it at the highest level.
Exactly. Highest level possible. Word.
Now, you mentioned the injury to Truck Bryan. You also had another injury to DeJohn Butler as well. So how did you guys, you know, utilize that as a rallying cry? Obviously, you got to, you know, rally around your teammates, and, you know, that's an unfortunate situation. But as a team, how did you guys remain glued and stay strong to get through that?
Well, the truck thing happened. That happened going into the before the Sweet 16. So um, it was it was it was a rallying cry because I mean, Truck is if anybody knows Truck is a fun-loving guy. He's always joking around, whatever. So he was, even though he wasn't on the court, he was still around supporting us on the bench, still giving tips to guys when they would come out from stuff he would see. So it was like he never left. Obviously, he's not physically in the game, but he's still locked in mentally and still helping out the team in whatever way he could. The whole Deshaun thing that happened when we were playing Duke in the Final Four, and seeing them, we were already down. Duke was shooting the lights out of the basketball, and be honest with you, in my opinion, I don't think we would have won that game even if he didn't get hurt, just
Right.
because of the way Duke was just playing. It was just Duke's day, you know. They was hitting everything. But when that happened to him, it just kind of sucked the life out of everybody. You know, we kept on playing. We weren't going to just give up, but just seeing him down like that because he was our senior leader. He
Mm-hmm.
had hit so many – he had hit 5-6 game winners, including in the Big East tournament to win the championship. So – to see him down like that, man, it was just one of those moments where like, shit, man, like you wish you could help him in some way, but there's no way you can. So it just kind of sucked the life out of everybody, I think.
So after making that run, um, and in the fashion that you did, the upsets, the comebacks, having to withstand, tough injuries. What was your takeaway from, as a player at that point through your first 2 years, and then preparing for the stretch run of junior year, senior year at West Virginia?
I think I would compare it to the time when I had to take over at Mount Vernon High School. It's like it's my time. It's no more sitting behind anybody. Like this is my team. Devin had he went to the draft. Deshaun obviously graduated, went to the draft. So it was me and Truck's team. Me and Truck was the older guys on that team, and we were the most well known people on that team. So it was our time to step up and deliver. And we had a lot of younger guys looking up at us again. So we had to be a good example for them as well. So I went into it with the same mindset as when I went into my junior year in high school.
Now, at that point, your minutes increase, your shots increase. You're averaging close to 14 points now. Um, your shot is really taking off more from a 3-point perspective. So, at the college level, what would you say? You know, how would you say your game? I wouldn't say changed, but more or less got amplified individually.
Well, I always could shoot, and I always could shoot threes, and I just for whatever reason I never did. I did sometimes in high school and stuff like that, and in college, I don't know. So it's just me. It's just the work ethic I put in. Obviously, I had put the muscle on, so that added to my post play. I'm going in the post more, not just outside, and my rebounding as well. So I just think me maturing as a player and my body as well, I think that just all added to the success I was having at that level.
Right. So, what was the season like as a leader? You and Truck. What was that season like as a junior, having that level of experience leave, but still having that level of expectation of can we carry it as far as we can? Like, how was that season for you guys?
You know what? It was ups and downs, especially for me personally, because going into that year, I was getting a lot of NBA attention, and I was on a lot of mock drafts going into that year. And some people were telling me, "Yo, Kev, you should come out now as my sophomore year," because I was projecting a lot of people's first rounds. But for me, I just still felt like I wasn't ready yet, and I still felt like one more year, and I'll be good. And then honestly, I felt like I took a step back my junior year because I was listening to a lot of people saying different things of, oh, yo, you need to add this to your game so scouts will like you more and do this and that. And I was being pulled a lot of different ways. And I think instead of just doing what got me there, I started venturing off more, which is nothing wrong with that. But I think I got away from what actually got me to the point of people wanting me. So I think I took a step back in that regard my junior year. And I think that ultimately kind of hurt the team because I wasn't the player that I was supposed to be. So
Right.
that hurt the team as, one of the leaders and the go-to guy. So the first half of the year was very shaky for me and the team. But I think towards the end of the year, I started getting back to myself, started doing what I did, and that caused more team success. So I think that goes hand in hand. So it was an up and down year. Overall, it was a decent season, I would say my junior year was.
Now, you point to a lot of things that many don't know, if they're not in that situation, when the higher you get, especially when you get closer to that point of potential NBA, there's so much that comes with that. How would you explain, managing that level of pressure to somebody that wouldn't quite understand? I mean, you did express that it affected the team dynamic, but like just from a day-to-day perspective, how does that affect you?
Yeah, a lot more attention, a lot more eyes on you. I'm a guy that's kind of to myself. I play the background a lot, don't really say much. You have you're the leader of a team now, so you have to say a lot. And that goes as far as not just media, but the team as well, being a vocal leader on the team, which I never had to do before. But now I'm thrust into that position. It's like, okay, how am I going to do that? Do I say too much? Am I not saying enough? Just constantly overthinking yourself.
Mm.
And so that's a big burden in itself. And then just as far as the basketball is concerned, is just kind of doing too much and not relying on, like I said, what got you there. And I think that's what I was doing. I had a lot of pressure on my shoulder. I felt, and it was the first time I ever been put in that kind of situation. So
Mm.
you never know. I mean, hindsight is 2020. When if I could go back and change a lot of things, I would. But you never know until you're put in that position. So um, at the start, I didn't handle it well. But I think, like I said, towards the end of the year going on, I started getting more used to that idea, and I started playing better.
So going through that, that the first half of your junior year, in your senior year, you're much more equipped and well prepared to handle it, and you start to see the progression. Uh, you average nearly 20 points as a senior. I mean, you really have a breakout season and potentially for the NBA. So, what was that experience like as a senior? Your biggest player of the year. What was that? What was that moment
Um, well, for me, I just my senior year was kind of like a culmination of everything coming together, coming from that 7th to 8th grade summer all the way up until then. That all that work, I'm like, I'm gonna put that all into this year, and like I worked like I never even worked before, and I consider myself a very hard worker. But that summer, that put something extra on it, and that's how I got the results. And not only that, it was me and Chuck's senior year. We had 8 freshmen coming in,
like?
so I had to work extra hard just because I'm like, whatever they don't, whatever they don't know, me and Chuck have to make up for that.
Right.
So the workload is extra tough. But this year, unlike my junior year, I was already put in that position, so I know what to do, and I'm already confident. I'm mature in myself as a player to know exactly what it is I'm good at, what it is I'm not good at, and be able to balance, expanding my game, but also being the player that everybody knows me to be. So that senior year was just a whole big mix of that. And I think only the third player in Big East history to lead the league in scoring and rebounding.
So
So
as you're doing this and it's coming together, where you might say you took a step back junior year and potential for the NBA, or just within you as a player, you might have felt. What was that feeling like to have all of that peak so well?
it was great, man. It's just nothing happens by accident. Like I put the work in for it. So it's just like I didn't want to say I didn't know I was going to lead the league in points and rebounds, but I knew that I was going to have a great senior year just
Mm.
because of the mindset. And I knew what it took. Unlike my junior year, I didn't know what I wanted to be that, but I didn't know what it took. So that kind of, without my junior year, I don't think I would have had my senior year. Let's just say I did great my junior year. I don't think I would have had the same senior year, just
Right.
because I didn't have that stumble, you know.
Right.
So that prepared me for being in the spotlight.
Now, as this individual success is happening, what was the season like? Having such a young team, you and Truck have to be the veteran leaders. You're more prepared. So what was the season like? Not individually, but as a team.
As a team, the season was great, up and down.
Oh, where I can't hear you.
Can you
I can
hear me?
hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, so like my junior year, the season was up and down, but you expect it. I mean, we have 8 freshmen coming, 8 totally new guys learning the system. Jabari Hines was one of the freshmen actually from Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon.
Yep. And so yeah, it was up and down. There was a lot of games that I felt like we should have won that we lost, and there was a lot of games that we lost that I felt like we should have won. So it was like you didn't know what was gonna happen. So in that regard, it was kind of crazy, but I think that we played better than a lot of people would have in under those circumstances and being so young of a team. So even though we didn't have the success that I might have wanted, we still went to the NCAA tournament. We didn't win the Big East tournament that year, but just like the circumstances that everything was under, I think we did pretty good under those circumstances.
So as this 4 year uh, journey is coming to an end, how would you sum up your experiences at West Virginia and preparation for a potential pro career?
That's great. I think those whole 4 years embodied what life was going to be like after, like during my pro career. Anyways, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of things you have to get used to, and that's going to happen at any level that you. It taught me to be prepared for any situation, because you never know what situation you're going to be put in. But whatever it is, you got to adapt, and you got to, you got to make it work. So I never wanted to use any excuses. Whatever happened, I'm just going to try to find a way to make it work. So that's just kind of been my whole pro career like mantra.
So as you graduate and start thinking about the NBA, where are your prospects at that point? Are you getting looks overseas as well? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, my whole mindset, well, going into that year, I'm hearing a lot of good stuff. I'm hearing, first round pick, maybe late second round, because there was a lot of, that was Anthony Davis. That was the year Anthony Davis went in, and he was the number one pick. And so we had a pretty good class going in. So I was hearing some really good stuff, and um, just preparing for the draft. I had my trainer from New York that I usually work with. He came in for the summer. He was living with me for a little bit, and he would come back and forth just to help me out for the combines. And yeah, so just doing the combine, doing the workouts, playing against all the top guys in the country that are supposed to be top picks, and playing well against them. I was very optimistic going into the draft.
Mm. So you go into the draft, but you don't get drafted. What was that feeling like for you?
Crushing. Because I was there with my family. Like I had, picked out a suit, everything, my whole family there. Like, this is going to be a great celebration. It don't matter where, at this point to me, obviously you want to get drafted in the first round. You want to get drafted as high as possible. But to me, it didn't matter. I was like, as long as I get to get my name called up there, I get to go shake whoever's hands is going to be up there. Man, that would have been enough for me. And I would have worked hard wherever I went. So to keep on hearing the names go by, and your name doesn't get called, especially after the season I had. I was an All-American, and it was just like, it was crushing, man. And I tried my best to keep a straight face in front of everybody in the family and just let them know, but they could tell. They could tell how hurt I was because of it. But yeah, it sucked, man. And that could have easily that could have been the end of that. I could have been like, forget this basketball stuff. You know what I mean? Like, But again,
Would you say that was your lowest moment?
oh yeah, as far as basketball is concerned, yeah, or just in general.
Well, within this journey at this point, would you say that's
Oh yeah, by far. That's by far, and that goes up there because I thought because the same two moments happened that year, and I didn't win the Big East Player of the Year,
oh,
which
you did it? But
no, I didn't. I got beat out by Jay Crowder from Marquette.
out of Marquette, okay.
Yeah. So he won Big East Player of the Year. But the other two players, like I said, I was the third player to ever lead in points and rebounds. The other two players won Big East Player of the Year.
Mm.
And I was the only one to not happen. People to this day still coming to me, yo, you deserve 8 years later, like, yo, they cheated you out of Big East Player of the Year. I'm like, bro, you don't have to keep reminding me. I already know. I already know, man. I'm trying to let it go.
Right.
So that happened earlier in the year, and then this happened, and man, it's like back to back. Like I can't win. You know what I mean? But I shook it off, and the next day I got a call from the Cleveland Cavaliers wanting me to sign with them for a training camp deal.
So
opportunity, great opportunity.
right. So what was it? While you did have that low moment, especially in front of your family, and an expectation of something that didn't come, to have that happen the next day, how did your mentality change towards going forward professionally? And did it teach you anything in terms of how the professional ranks work now compared to, everything else prior?
Oh man, that taught me a bunch of lessons that day. I went from sad to determined. I didn't even think I was happy. I don't even think I was happy, which, as crazy as that sounds, I wasn't even happy. I was just like, okay, good. Like, that's what we doing? All right, bet. So let's get to work now. And now I know I have a target. I already know what I need to do. So that, and it also taught me that, yeah, this game is more than just talent. It's a
Right.
lot of other aspects that go into the game. The more and more the years go by, you don't get surprised or you don't get too upset when things happen that you felt like shouldn't have happened, because
Right.
you know the ropes now. You know how it goes. All you can do is go into a situation that's best suited for you and hope for the best. That's literally all you can do. And yeah, that taught me a lot of lessons that day. And it never, because I went into the draft like, there's no way I'm not gonna get called. Like I
Right.
earned this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even when you feel like you earned something, it could be, you know what I mean? Like until it happens, you don't have it. I thought I already had it, you know? So it just taught me to not be pessimistic about stuff, but just be even keel, if I would say. Not
Right.
too high, never too low.
Similar to Tim Duncan in a way. You never knew whether he was winning or losing. He just was always very, like you were saying earlier, just committed to the task and fundamentally sound in his approach to the craft.
Exactly.
Now, I want to tie that in a little bit because, you go to Cleveland and you're there, but then you're designated for assignment within the G League team, up and down, back and forth. But your debut in the NBA was actually against the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Crazy.
So, how did that feel to see things? Did you think about it coming full circle in that way, being a fan of KG? How was that? How was that feeling for you?
Nah, man, that was so crazy because when I got the call, you get called up. You're like, all right, I got called up. They probably need an extra body, something like that in practice. So I didn't even think, to be honest, I got called up. I didn't think I was gonna play. Most nights I got called up. They made me sit behind the bench dressed up or whatever like that, or I didn't play, or until whatever, like 2 minutes left. So when I get called up to the Minnesota game, and I'm just looking around like, oh shit, like I'm in Minnesota, like, you know what I mean, this is where KG played at. Whatever, he not playing here now, but still, like, this is where I always watched him.
Right.
And then going into the game, and I not only do I get called in, I get called in the first quarter.
Right.
I'm like, oh snap, like I'm not gonna lie, that was the most nervous I've ever been in my life, bro. I never been so nervous. My hands shaking, everything. So I get in the game, right? Surprised and all. I just go in. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna just go and do whatever I can. My first shot, a shot I hit 1,000 times, elbow jump shot. 2 feet short, air ball, first shot. So everybody was like, everybody was just laughing at me because they knew it was like just nerves. It was like, hey, yo, you good now? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got that out your system? I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm good now. So then the rest of the game, I think I finished with like 4 points and like 5 rebounds, something like that. But just that experience, man, of my first NBA game is nothing. Like nothing beats that. Like to this day, I played. It wasn't a long career, but just the fact that you made it. Not a lot of people can say that ever.
Right. And within that, process to get from where you started in 5th grade and not even really being a fan of the game to put in all that work, have the highs and lows that you had in terms of, expectations, really living up to them up until certain points, having challenges at the highest level of college, and then overcoming that to get to a pinnacle and have disappointment, but then turn around and to manifest and be able to play. I think that journey within itself is a story, but then to transition and turn it into something totally different and at a higher level somewhere else, I think that alone is storybook. But take us into the mindset of, okay, my NBA career didn't really maximize the way many would have expected, but it's so many other vast opportunities outside of the NBA. How did that manifest for you in terms of other countries and other leagues?
Well, my whole reason for going to overseas was I wanted more money. Like G League, well, it was the D League at the time. You don't really get paid anything. The highest guy's check get paid like 20,000 at that time. It's probably more now.
Right.
But so I was like, yeah, after you get them NBA checks, you like, what is this? Like, you playing the D League, like I can't do this. I need to find something different. But I heard so many horror stories about overseas not getting your money on time or not getting your money at all or getting extorted, whatever, just like bad stories from people. So I was always weary about playing overseas. But I finally got fed up with the G League. D League. I had made the All-Star team that year.
This
And
is 2014.
this is 2014. Yep.
Okay.
2014. So I got fed up with all that stuff. And I was like, yo, there's this team in the Philippines, they want you to play. I'm like, Philippines, this is always all the way on the other side of the world. I'm like, well, how much they offering? He told me how much they offering. I'm like, all right, well, I was like, how am I gonna get there, because I gotta get out of this D League contract. So
Right.
they paid for me to get out of my contract to play for them. So I've been outside of the country once or twice, but never to play basketball, So I go, it's a 15-hour flight. All of that stuff is running in my head. Like, what if I don't like the food? What if I don't like this and that? And luckily for me, I had some guys on my team who spoke English, and they actually played in college themselves in the States, even though even though their family was Filipino. So I got used to life quick playing overseas, and it matured me as a person. I thought college would mature me, but this is a whole different thing being overseas by yourself. So
Well, explain that culture shock in a sense, and the type of challenges you had to really overcome while still playing a game. You did mention, the game itself is always simple, but it's always things outside of it that you have to adjust to. So what was that like for you?
well, as far as outside of basketball, just like learning places, learning where to go, learning where not to go.
Right.
This is not your country. At the end of the day, like, something could happen to you. They're like, all right, well, it is what it is. But just trying to learn the language or learning how to get around. Luckily, in the Philippines, where I was in Manila, people spoke English for the most part.
Okay.
So I got lucky in that sense. I couldn't imagine if I would have went to some place my first time and nobody really spoke English. I had to get around my own because I was not used to that. I wouldn't consider myself a worldly person, so I would have been struggling. And as far as the basketball side is learning your teammates, how they like to play, how the brand of basketball is played in the Philippines. Because one style in America, but there's tons in every country they play a different style. Whether it's some countries finesse, some countries power, like you know what I mean. So just learning that brand, learning your teammates, learning how you'll fit in. It's like starting basketball all over again. It's like learning basketball all over again. But I'm thankful for those experiences because it taught me how to adapt in any situation.
So what would you say was your biggest takeaway from the Philippines in terms of transitioning to other countries as well?
Just be prepared. Just be good with your teammates. I've always been good with my teammates. I've always been a team guy first. But knowing the locals, going out with them, there was times they would be like, "Yo, let's all go to the movies." We would all go to the movies together, all go out to eat together. So that's big. That's big time. Knowing your teammates and not just being there like, "Oh yeah, y'all do what y'all want to do. I'm just here for whatever." That's like over the years, I've always wanted to get to know my teammates and do stuff with them because that's bonding right there. You know what I mean? They get to know you, you get to know them. So that's a big thing. I would say the biggest thing is like knowing your teammates, not isolating yourself from people.
Right. Now, and doing my research, I saw you played in the Philippines, Serbia, Russia, now in Japan. So, which country would you say you played your best, and which country would you say you had your most adjustment in?
The country that I play my best, man. I feel like I play really good in each country. But I would say where I took a big leap as far as like my status overseas is when I was in Serbia.
Okay.
I was playing for a Serbian team named Partizan, which is a well-known European team. But at the time, they were kind of down, and they had a new coach stepping into a new era of basketball. But their tradition was great, fan base great, still to this day. And going into that situation, remember one of those times where I was telling you hear the horror stories about people not getting paid or not getting paid on time. That was one of the places where I didn't get paid on time. So I'm not used to that.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair, which I don't think it is, but it still happens to this day. So I was already kind of off it from there. And I'm like, yo, I'm busting my ass every day to not get paid on time or not get paid when I'm supposed to. I'm not feeling this. I'm about to be out.
Right.
And that would have probably been the worst. That would have probably been the death of my European career if I would have left that team. Just because of that propelled me. Once I did good there, that propelled me to my next job, which was in Russia, which I got 10 times the money I got in but I would have never got that job if I didn't finish the season.
Right.
In
So
Partizan.
But whatever's perceived setback, it always sets you up for the next.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And it also taught me patience because I was never really a patient person. But overseas, you got to be, some things don't happen. And I'm always like, fair is fair, like you do a job, you get paid for doing that job. Like that should be as simple as that. But it's not always as simple as that, especially with overseas basketball. So me having to learn that, thankfully I didn't have to learn it the hard way by just leaving, and that would have been the end of my career there. But yeah, just learning those lessons is valuable lessons that I'm glad I didn't have to learn the hard way. And then where I had to have my most adjustment, I would say, was Serbia too. So that's where I had my biggest step up, and that's my most adjustment because they live a different kind of lifestyle there. And actually, let me take that back. Not Serbia. It was Russia. It was Russia that where my next job after Serbia, where I had the most adjustment, because where I was, Krasnodar is not a super big city. It's not Americanized at all. And the Russian culture is just not like they don't really, where I was, they don't really smile like that. They're not as energetic. And that's just how I am. So for me, I had to kind of change my demeanor to fit in, which, that's tough to do for me. and but I also play well there as well.
So now in your current space in Japan, what has that experience been like for you? Being a veteran, understanding the game now from an overseas perspective, how has that been?
I love Japan, man. I I love Japan. Everything about it, the people, culture, food, uh, just I think it has the best of both worlds. I mean, they're very professional, on time with the money. Facilities are good. They have people taking care of your body, which is most important for me. I love to take care of my body. Ice baths, massages, all that stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that. And yeah, the league is growing each year. There's a lot of guys coming in because of how fast it's growing. So I'm glad that I kind of got in on the ground floor, I would say, and I made a name and I'm kind of established there. So I feel like I could finish the rest of my career in Japan, and I would, unless a NBA team was calling saying we got guaranteed money for you. I don't see myself playing in Europe again. I don't think anything could happen, but as of right now, I don't see it happening.
So being in America for so long, playing a certain way, and then seeing the progression of the game, the way that you have on both sides, where would you say the game has changed from when you were younger to now, and where do you see the game going in terms of style and just overall?
I think there are no. I mean, there are some. They're starting to come back. The big men, the post moves, the all the fundamental stuff. I felt like that was gone for a little bit. And growing up, that's all I watched. Like I said, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, the true big man who great footwork in the post and everything like that. That's why I model my game after. And I joke with people sometimes too. I'm like, yo, I was born in the wrong era because I
Born
feel
a
like
little
my
too
game
early.
more. Yeah.
Born a little too early.
Yeah, I was like, yo, I feel like my game kind of fits more what today is doing, especially,
Right.
you got the tweeners, you got the guys who are positionless and kind of, I would say Draymond Green was one of the guys that kind of catapulted that,
Right.
the positionless guys who could play all five damn near if you needed them to.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Right.
feel like that kind of fits my game now, but where do I see it going? It's just people getting more skilled, people getting more athletic as technology gets better, as they find new ways to you find new ways to take care of your body. You find people going to start playing longer. I just see the game is heading in a good way, and it's going to be way different than what we've known it for. Let's just say even 20 years ago with the Bulls or something like that, or with the bad boy Pistons. Like I don't think that game is ever going to come back.
Right. Just
Yeah.
in terms of the fluidity of the game and the aesthetics of it, that's not really best suited to the skill set of, like you're saying, the skill of players. You want to see that, you know, exercise. Um,
Yeah.
what is? I don't want to hold you for too long, but what would you say is something that's misinterpreted or taken out of context from somebody looking in about an athlete or a professional basketball player that they maybe need to have some more understanding about?
That we're cocky, or we think that we're all that or something like that, because the first thing people see me and then they have a conversation with me. They're like, oh, you're not anything like I expected. I'm like, well, what did you expect? Like, well, I expected you to be, stuck up, whatever. You didn't have time for me, or just all into yourself. I'm like, nah, like, you have some people that are like that, but for the majority of the people, basketball players that I met, they're some of the coolest people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that our job gives people the impression that we think of ourselves higher than we are, so that you don't look at us like we're human. So you think that we don't look at ourselves like we're just regular people. You know what I mean? So other people's perception of us kind of makes them think that that's how we feel about ourselves, when that's not the case at all. Like, we're some of the most cool, laid back people in the world. And I think if you get to know more athletes or something like that, you'll see that. And also the thing of, they feel like we've had stuff handed to us, or we're crying, or we're ungrateful or whatever like that, just because of the amount of money we make. But they don't see the long hours before. They don't see the 6 a.m. workouts. They don't see all the things that we have to sacrifice to be in this position.
Right.
So, and that's what I would say to people, man, is just that, like, this is not easy. And of course we get paid for it, but that's, if you're good at something, you should get, what I mean? It's just like any other job. Like, if you're
Right.
good at something, you get paid by how good you are. So that's just that.
Now, as you played a long time, you start to think about life after basketball. I see you're a part of a podcast, The Final Forecast. So what were your thoughts in terms of, creating that podcast, and what are your thoughts about, broadcasting after basketball? Like, how did it make you feel?
Well, that's always been one of my passions. I love talking the game to anybody. Even when I was younger, we would sit around, me, you, a lot of people at the lunch table, whatever. We would debate sports all the time. So
Right.
I love, like, I could do that all the time. So that's just one of my passions. But obviously, doing that at the next level and being professional with it is two different things. It's a whole different ball game. So eventually, I want to get into that realm. But for me, this podcast was a way that I can show people more of my personality. Because like I said, if I don't know you, I'm more laid back, reserved. You don't really know how outgoing and charismatic I am until you see the podcast when I'm around my friends, and we just talking about whatever. And the good thing about it is we're not just talking about sports or basketball. We talk about political views. We talk about stuff going on in the world, relationships, just everyday things that you wouldn't even think that we would talk about. You think we would just only talk about sports.
Right.
Kind of showing people that we're more than just that. We have views on more than just sports. So I like it.
So as you've done it and gotten more comfortable with it, what have you learned about yourself?
About myself, just that I can be more outgoing and approachable, because maybe from the outside looking in, somebody would look at me if I'm out somewhere. If I'm not necessarily smiling or something at the time, they would seem like I'm unapproachable or something like that, when I'm probably one of the most approachable people around me. So I just got to be more conscious of that, and how my demeanor comes off to other people. And then also just sharing more of myself with people. Because, when you share more of yourself, that gives more people room to judge you. And that's, a lot of people are scared of judgment, which I'm one of them, people judging you. But just to, like, relax yourself, and, like, people are going to judge you regardless.
Right.
Why don't you just go out and you not care about what people think, and just the right people will come along and accept that. So it's made me mature on that level.
So to this point, not just as a person, as an athlete and beyond, what is one lesson that you learned throughout your life that you would give advice towards, or that you can lean on forever?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but don't give up, man, because there's a lot of ups and downs that's gonna happen. There's a lot of stumbles in your life that's gonna happen to you, and how you react to that is gonna determine how far you go in life. And just I just say, just stay even keel. Never get too down, never get too low. I mean, never get too low, never get too high. And man, take everything, be grateful for everything, because a lot of times we look at what other people have and we're like, yo, I wish I had that. I wish I wish I had more, instead of being grateful for what we already have and thankful for what we already have. So man, just be thankful for what you got. Of course, always strive to do more, but be thankful for what you have at the same time. So that's the advice I would give to people.
Great message there. Great message there. Where can people find you at? Social medias?
Yeah,
Where can they find you?
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Instagram Kevin Jones 5, Twitter Kev Jones 5, Facebook just Kevin Jones. My name is very very normal. A lot of people have my name, but yeah, you'll see my profile on there. And yeah, just look at that stuff. We have a lot of updates coming when our podcast comes on, new episodes of that. I hope guys really tune into that to see another side of us. And yeah, that's about it.
Hey man, Kev, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. A lot of jewels dropped in here. So whoever's listening, all it takes is one. If you could just drop all those jewels and then catch it, it'll make everybody better. So thank you for that, man. Thank you for your testimony and your journey, and continue to strive, like you said, to be your best self. And hopefully once this quarantine is over, you can get back to what you love to do, and that's play at a high level.
Yeah,
So,
man, I appreciate you having me.
congrats. We'll be back with much more. I'm Ask Isaiah Rose. This is the GrAE Area. Peace.